so glad
Happy
you're
New
here.
Year.
Happy New Year. So
Crazy.
I want to start from the beginning a little bit.
Okay.
So you are a brand new middle school pastor here at Foothills, and you have a incredible passion for what you do.
Yeah.
And I'd love to just hear a little bit more about that and then your plans for the Foothills program.
Yeah, sounds good. So I was just thinking, standing there, that this marks 2 months this weekend that I've been at Foothills and
That's
in Malala.
exciting.
So still relatively new, getting to know people, getting to know the culture, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But not new to middle school ministry. I started middle school ministry way back when I was 17. I'm not going to
Okay.
tell people how long ago that was, but it was a while ago. So I definitely have an affinity to that age group.
Yeah.
Part of it comes from that being the start of my ministry career back as a volunteer. I pretty much worn every hat in middle school ministry. So, but that also, with so many years of working with that age group, I mean, you're just a specialist if you're paying attention working with that age group for so long. And so that's really why I find so much connection to middle school. But I think another youth pastor friend of mine said it best when he said, middle school is special because the cement is still wet. And I really like that metaphor. That analogy has really stuck with me because I feel like it's this beautiful, for lack of better terms, middle moment between, being a kid, being a little child,
absolutely.
and being an adult. And going into high school, there's so many different things going on, and the cement starts to harden. The way they think, kind of their worldview is already formed, even in high school ministry. You kind of have to bring out the jackhammer and start to rework some of those things that have formed. But middle school is this moment where the cement is still wet. They're leaning in, listening to adults, and if you can get their attention, sometimes it's pretty short window, but when you get their attention, you have the ability to plant some of those seeds, those spiritual seeds, which bring fruit later on. So that's where that passion of middle school comes from.
Yeah, I love when you speak about that because just, knowing that you and I were going to be talking this week, I was thinking back to my middle school years, and I think those were my most impressionable years, especially in my faith walk. There was so many people who definitely planted those seeds, who definitely spoke over my life in those times, and I remember them so clearly. So when I look back on the fond memories of middle school, a lot of it was those things that you're speaking of, and so I just adore that. So as you start this new program, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but you have a unique approach. Of course, you're sort of forced to do that because of the year that we've just had and how we're kind of starting things again.
Yeah, refreshed.
But tell us a little bit about your approach and why you're doing things the way you are. And kind of your plan.
Yeah, well, I've said consistently, if you parents have followed us on the socials, you've heard me say this, but I'm saying it for those who haven't, which is, I've done youth ministry for 20 years, but I've never done youth ministry in a pandemic. And there really are some unique complexities. Like a lot of things in youth work, you're always in this pickle between parents and students, between staff expectations and, the community. You're kind of in this in-between in a lot of ways. So I'm trying to take in all the data. I have been taking in a lot of data from parents, from staff, from expectations, the community, obviously with what's going on with the pandemic and where that's at. And so the more that I prayed about it, the more that I looked into it, we went with an approach of starting small and ramping up. And so it's, there's pros and cons to every model, so I imagine some of you listening and some of you seeing are like, we just want it to be the big thing again. And so when you start small, people are frustrated. I've heard a few parents say, hey, my kid's opting out until it's the large thing again. And that's totally fine. We're cool with that. But we just think for the next few months, for the the beginning of this year, we're going to start small with small groups. And so literally today, you can sign up today for these 2 small groups. We're going to begin with one on Sundays at 4 p.m. and then one on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. And so those are 2 small groups. They're going to be limited to 10 students. And as a church, we're committed and we're going to start taking those steps towards opening back up. And I will just say here too, if you haven't heard, that our ultimate plan is to get back to large group programming. But I really think God's doing something here. I think, we're going to look at this in April, and I think we can build a foundation from the small groups that then we can build on the large groups. So I really think it's going to end up being cool, and just hope your son or daughter can be a part of it.
I love that. So while you spoke of that, that's the vision that came to me, was a couple things that, every relationship has to be built with trust. And when you start with a small group, you're going to start building trust that God will just bless and love, because you're going to bring such unity to those groups, and that's a beautiful thing. And then I know our church leadership here well, being a staff member of the church, and every decision right now is weighted, but there is such prayer, such thought, such care for this entire community that goes into each decision. And so I just want to recognize and thank you for those hard decisions that in your new leadership role you're making at this point. I mean, it's not easy to be in any leadership role during the season, but I think that our church, I'm just in awe of the amazing work that they're doing. Still moving the mission forward, but caring about all people in our community, and no matter where they're at in regards to those things. So I love that. So
thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So lastly, well, there's a couple things I guess I want to touch on. How can people get involved? So how do they contact you? How do they follow you? How do they know where to get kids signed up? All of that information.
Yeah, good question. So mainly all of our social media is the best way. So we have Instagram accounts, and then we also have Facebook pages. And so the links are already there this morning. I dropped them into Crossroads is our middle school page, and then Search and Rescue. So if you go FSM Search and Rescue, FSM Crossroads, that's us on Facebook.
Perfect.
And then Instagram is just FSM Middle School. You can find us there for the middle school stuff. And then, as always, email me, Kurt with a K at foothillsonline.com, or just call the church office. That's probably the best
Excellent.
two ways.
Good.
But
we definitely try to make it as easy as possible for people to connect with you. So if you have any questions, you can always call the church, like Kurt said. That's fabulous. So we know that not everybody in our online community has middle schoolers. So what I would love to ask you for your last question is, how can those that don't have kids this age partner with you? How can they be praying for you, your ministry, every kid that's going to be there?
You're leading the witness. You can definitely support the student ministry through prayer. You can support us through financial giving. I know of a couple just this last week, if you're watching, gave money to the student ministry and don't have anybody in student ministry or connected to that. That's huge. That makes such a huge difference for what we can do when we have finances to do the ministry with. So that would be another way. The last one would be, we need volunteers. As we move to large group especially, we're going to need a handful of you to step up and just be volunteers. And it's a misnomer to think that, I don't have any kids, or I'm too old, or this or that. Don't count yourself out. God uses everybody in student ministry.
Love that. Amen. Well, Kurt, thank you so much for being here today.
For sure.
It means a lot. We're super excited about what you're doing. We will be praying for your ministry and for you and for every single kid that comes a part of that, and even those that are still coming in the future. So thank you so much for being here today.